Oh, hello, biology students. Sorry, I was distracted by the TikTok. I put my phone away. Focus. So welcome to the lab today. Today we are going to be testing what type of macromolecules can be found in a seed. And I'm just realizing that my safety goggles are reflecting the light, so I will do my best to make eye contact with you while I do this, but got to keep my eyes protected while we do this. So what we're looking for today are 4 different macromolecules. We'll be looking to see if seeds have lipids, which is a type of fat, to see if they have complex carbohydrates, so really big carbohydrates, to see if they have simple carbohydrates or simple sugars, and to see if they have proteins. All right, so what we're going to use today are 4 different indicators. So you've used an indicator, or we've used indicators before when we used bromothiamyl blue, or BTB. So if you remember in the yeast lab, we used it to show that the yeast was making carbon dioxide. And then we also used it in the Elodia lab, the photosynthesis and respiration lab, which we may not have gotten to yet. But whatever, you're going to use it again. BTB. We're using 4 different indicators today. The first one is basically just iodine. Iodine tests for the presence of starch. So if starch is present, then the iodine will turn a really dark black. So you can put it like on a potato, which is full of starch, and it'll turn totally black. The second indicator we're using today is called Sudan4, and this tests for the presence of fats, and it will actually kind of clump up at the top if there are fats present. We then have Biuret, which I may be saying wrong, but it is an indicator to say whether there is proteins. I had to remember. And then we're using Benedict solution, which tests for simple sugars. All right. And today what we're going to be using to test as our seed is going to be an acorn from my backyard. So I have an oak tree in my backyard, and I really had a hard time finding acorns because this year we had a family of squirrels move in, and boy, those guys are hungry. They've been eating all the acorns, but I was able to find some acorns. I ground them up in my coffee grinder, so now I have a nice acorn paste, which smells really bad. Don't sniff things in the lab. Bad teacher. All right. So I have 8 test tubes set up here. I have 4 test tubes that say seed on them. These are going to be the ones I actually put the seed into. And then I have 4 test tubes that say control. So these ones are not going to have any seeds. And I've gone ahead and already put some distilled water in all of my test tubes just to kind of make our lives a little easier. So the first thing we're going to test for is we are going to go ahead and test for starch. That's the easiest one. Oops, I just realized I forgot something. Just when you think you're prepared, you realize you forgot pipettes. So I got my little pipetter here, and I'm going to use a different pipette for each of my indicators just to make sure I don't mess up. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of move some of my test tubes over so I can focus on just the ones that I'm working with. So right here I have a seed and I have a control. All right, I'm going to put those down. I'm going to go ahead and take a pinch of this ground up acorn, which is like a paste, and I'm going to put it in my seed test tube. So I'm going to throw it in there, and then I'm going to swirl it around a little bit so it's nice and mixed up. Oh yeah, doesn't that look delicious? All right, I'm going to take my pipetter. I'm going to grab my iodine, which I have to laugh because there's a pipetter stuck in the iodine. We always want to be careful with iodine because it will stain your skin and your clothes. I learned that lesson the hard way when I spilled an entire container of it on my jeans one day. My favorite jeans, for the record. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and put about 10 drops of iodine into my control. So you can see that it's a nice brown color. Then I'm going to go ahead and find my seed. I'm going to put about 10 drops into my seed. All right, squirt the excess back in there. Chuck the pipetter because I'm not going to use it again. And what the heck is going on here? All right, so if we look at our control versus our seed, so let me put it, seed is in this hand, control is here. So the control has no seed, it stayed at light brown color. Over here, my seed turned a nice dark black. All right, so what does that tell me about whether or not my seed has starch? Let's talk about that. All right, for our second test, we're going to go ahead and test for proteins. So I'm going to use my Biuret. Okay, so here's my Biuret. I'm going to grab a new pipetter. Okay. And I have 2 new test tubes. So I have my seed test tube with water in it, And I have my control test tube with water in it. So I'm going to take my seed test tube and I'm going to get a chunk of this delicious acorn and I'm going to cram that in there. And I'm going to mix it up so it's kind of at the bottom, so kind of it reminds me a little bit of a chunky protein shake. Blech. All right, I got my new pipetter. I got my Biuret. I'm going to suck some up here. Now it's a nice light blue color, so I'm going to put 10 drops or so in my control tube. And you're not going to really see much of a change in color. Let's see if we can get a little more of a change. So it's kind of light blue, it's hard to tell. All right, let me get a little more here. And then I'm going to go ahead and put it into my seed. Okay, so mixing it up. Oh yeah, that's nice and dark. So here's my control, which is a nice light blue color, which is kind of hard to see. I should have worn a white shirt, that would have made sense. And then here's my seed. So it's hard to see. Let me mix it up a little more. But we definitely see a color change. So we have a definite color change. Got a lot murkier, a lot darker. So my control didn't really change color, but this one really, really changed. All right, so what does that mean? What does that mean about proteins? Let's talk about that. All right, so our next two tests require a little bit more. My test for lipids is going to need to sit for a little while, and my test for sugars is going to need to boil for a little while. So I'm going to go ahead and start my gas. Here we go. Start my gas so I can start that boiling. It should boil here in a second. And we're going to run two tests at the same time. So we're going to try to keep these straight here. Let me get two new test tubes. Okay, so I have a seed and a control. This one is going to be my fat test. And then I have a seed and a control. This is going to be my sugar test. And I'm going to go ahead and set up the sugar test first because that one takes a little bit longer. So let me grab a new pipetter. Okay. So I'm going to find my seed, and I'm going to put a little bit of seed in there, seed paste. Get a nice chunk of seed paste for that. And I'm going to mix it up, nice and mixed. Okay. Then I'm going to get a new pipetter, and for this test we're using what's called Benedict's solution. So I'm going to unscrew the lid on that. Alright, so it's a blue color, kind of like our previous one. So I'm going to put some in there. So we got a nice blue color there. And then I'm going to put some in the seed one as well. Okay, so it kind of turned to kind of a funny milky green color. Squirt the extra back in there. Alright, so now these guys are going to go into the boiling water for 3 minutes. And that should boil here any second. And let me find my phone. And set the timer for 3 minutes. All right, while that is going, we're going to go ahead and do the fat test as well, the lipid test. So let me get this Benedict's put away. We don't want to leave it open. And I'm going to grab my last set of test tubes. They have nothing in them, my control and my seed. The one that says seed, I'm going to put some paste in there, some acorn paste. Oh yeah. Okay. I'm going to get my last clean pipette, and I'm going to get Sudan 4. So this test is for fats. There we go. It didn't even come off. So I'm going to get some of this. Oh, nice and red, hence the name Sudan Red. Oh, I got it on my hand. I'm going to die. No, I'm not. I'm going to wash my hands here. So I got a nice red color. I'm going to squirt some into my seed. Squirt the extra back. Put the lid on this so I don't knock it over, because that would be something I would do. And then I'm going to mix this one up so it's nice and mixed in there. All right, we're going to let this one sit while the Benedict's is boiling, and we'll return in about 3 minutes. All right, our 3 minutes are up. So let's take a look let me turn off the fire first before I set myself on fire. Let's take a look and see what we came up with. So here's our control. So this is our sugar test, remember, our simple sugars. So here's our control, still a light blue and only mildly hot. And then here is our test tube. So we can definitely see, hot, that there is a change. So we went from this nice blue color to this kind of rusty orange color. All right, so we definitely see a color change. What does that mean? And then our last one is our lipid test. Let's see how it's doing. So our control, we still have a nice red response. So this one is a little harder to tell, and let me bring it a little closer. But basically the fat kind of gathers at the top, and so we get a nice little layer of that, but it's really hard to see on video. But this is definitely a change between our control. So we do see some of the stuff gathering at the top. All right, so there you go. That's what's in a seed. I hope that was helpful, and have fun analyzing our results.